story. Everybody has one. No matter who you are, no matter where you are from, you have a story, and your story matters. For the past 10 years, God has been writing the story of our partnership with the Reverend Marupis Academy in Kapenguria, Kenya. As each chapter has unfolded through the years, we've grown closer and closer. God has been tying our hearts together through our shared stories. This summer, we were able to see God weaving our stories together in a whole new way.
We had a great travel team that went to Kenya this year, and probably the most special thing for me was having 3 students go for the very first time. Did you know that in addition to being a school, the Reverend Marupis Academy is also a factory and a farm? There's a rather primitive brick making section of the school that they use for bricks in building, and they also sell to the community. There's a more modern water plant that they bottle fresh, clean water in. It's also a farm. They've always grown maize, and they use the maize to make porridge to feed the children. Also, they grow vegetables and coffee to sell to the community. They have animals, goats and chickens. And one day, we were having tea in the afternoon, and leaning up against the chicken coop were some seedling trees. They're blue gum trees, and Reverend Marupis told us that those blue gums were going to be grown to become electric power poles, and they'd be able to sell those in about 5 to 7 years. There were over 1,000 blue gum seedlings. But as we talked about the seedlings, Brent Maring and I noticed the chickens. The chicken coop, the chickens walking around, chickens at our feet, and we thought to ourselves, should we have chickens at Granville Christian School, just like the Reverend Marupis Academy? Some of you have chickens at home. What do you think? Should we have chickens at school?
Alright, Aves, what was it like to meet your buddy for the first time?
It was just like so amazing because you always see him in like pictures, and then you go to Kenya and they're just like standing right in front of you, and it's like, oh my goodness, this is the buddy I've had for quite a bit. Now I'm actually seeing her in person, so it's just a really cool feeling. And like, I played with her a lot, and that was so much fun, and her friends were all like on me but it was just really cool to see her in person, and yeah.
So how did you like the food there?
It was very unique, I should say, because like we eat like pork and all that stuff, where they don't have like a pigs, they eat goat, and I almost ate goat intestine, which is kind of ew.
Who saved you from that?
Your Mrs. Skolma.
Oh. How'd you like the goat?
It was okay. I think I would have preferred like ham or turkey or something, but it was good.
Did you tried pretty much everything, didn't you?
Yeah, I tried a lot.
Would you go back?
Yes.
In a heartbeat?
Yes.
And whenever.
When we flew halfway around the world to Kenya and stepped off the plane and out of the airport, it was very clear things were different in Kenya. But the longer I stayed, the more I realized there are a lot of things we have in common and a lot of things that are the same. When we went hiking, we saw things that were different, like a Sitatunga animal, deer-like animal, that you would only see there. But we also saw one of my favorite birds, the kingfisher. When we arrived at the school, the buildings were different. The whole campus was completely different than our campus, and the classrooms were. But the longer I was there and got to know the students and the teachers, there's so many things that are the same. The students were given God's good gift of curiosity, just like you. The students at recess would burst out of the building to go play with their friends. I saw older children playing and helping out the younger children at school. The other thing that was the same is that they gathered for praise and worship just like you today, the whole school all together. But they did not meet in a gym like you. They met in the shade of a sycamore tree.
Beautiful. There we
Is
go.
that good enough
Yep,
to end
yep,
with?
yep, yep.
And
The moment that moved me the most was the day that we arrived in Capangoria, and we were greeted by all the teachers, all the students, many of the parents who had driven 10-15 minutes in from town to come and see us after school hours. They could have been at home with their families, cooking dinner, but they wanted to meet us and see us. Now, I had a similar experience 4 years ago when I went. Well, not as many people showed up, just some of the teachers, but I was scared witless the first time I went. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know much about the partnership, so I was just nervous. And what struck me was earlier, about an hour before we arrived, I overheard Mr. Steenstra talking to somebody who hadn't been there yet, and talking about the first time he came, how he was just moved to tears. And I remember thinking to myself, I was scared. I wasn't crying. Mr. Steenstra, he's so sensitive. But didn't think much of it. Let it go. And we arrived and saw the crowd and got out of the van, and kids started to pile off the bus, and we were shaking people's hands and giving hugs. And out of the corner of my eye, I noticed two girls just standing there looking at each other, smiles on their faces, and I just lost it. I was bawling. Don't tell anybody though. Shh, keep that a secret. Just bawling. I was so moved, and at that moment, it was the moment that I realized this is what it's all about. It's about these kids. When I started here at Granville Christian, like I said, I didn't know much about this partnership, and buddies were just pen pals that were really far away. But after that experience, that moment, I realized that these aren't pen pals. These are kids that love God and are finally able to meet each other. These are true friends, and that is just what this partnership is all about.
Do you know how much your Kenya buddies love you? Everyone at the RMA asked me to tell you how very, very much they love you. I love seeing how Jesus is working through our Kenya buddies through their care for our family and the other travelers. I saw how much they had and how very, very much I have. There are things that seem like no big deal to us that they don't have. We are able to turn on the faucet everywhere, knowing that water is safe. We are able to go to school, but in Kenya, not all kids get to go to school. We have a lot of medicine, doctors, and shots to help protect us from getting sick, compared to Kenya where there's not as much medical help. Sometimes in the morning on the way to school in the car, my mom, my sister, and I count our blessings. We have many things to be grateful for. My trip to Kenya has changed my life by showing me the difference between what I want and what I need. I also learned that even though we have differences, we are the same as brothers and sisters in Christ.
Never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that God would allow me to return to Kenya this past summer, and that he would bless me with the privilege of sharing that experience with my girls. As a teacher, it gave me such great joy to see GCS students and RMA students finally coming face to face for the very first time, playing hopscotch together, going to class together, holding hands together. But as a mom, getting to watch my girls take part in this next step for our partnership was like finding a surprise gift under the tree on Christmas morning. I want you to know that we serve a God who takes what seems impossible and makes it possible. I have seen God do this in our partnership time and time again. He has opened doors that appeared to be closed. He has connected people and places that were so far apart. He has worked and moved to make things happen that I never, ever, ever could have expected. God is working. Keep your eyes open. He's not done here. As a matter of fact, I think he's just getting started.
When I was in Kenya this summer, I noticed that there just was such extreme poverty all over the place. People were just barely making a living, barely making enough to get by for the day. Yet there were also people that were doing quite well, that had good jobs and nice homes. I imagine they broke that gap between the rich and the poor by having an education. In Kapinguria, where the RMA is at, there is a lot of poverty. People are truly struggling there. Yet, many of the parents saw the value of education, and they wanted their children to have that education. They were willing to make sacrifices, and they sent them to the RMA. There were also some kids that were at the RMA that Joseph Marupas had taken an interest in as he was in town, and he wanted to see them have a better life as well. And so he invited them to join them at the RMA. For these children, their lives hopefully are going to change. They're going to have some big changes that they're going to be able to see in their lives. As I was sitting one day with two girls, we were just sitting outside the classroom, and I sat down with them and asked them about their hopes and dreams of the future. As we were talking, all of a sudden, I bet 25 kids surrounding me, all wanting to tell me about their hopes and dreams. Many of them shared the careers that they wanted to have, and I was amazed. There were things, these kids wanted to be lawyers, they wanted to be doctors, they wanted to be veterinarians, business people, you name it. They had the gamut of different jobs that they could have. Here in the midst of this poverty, these kids come from nothing, and yet they have hope. They have hope that they are going to be able to have a job, and a good job at that. In the midst of poverty, against almost impossible odds for them to do well, they were getting opportunities that their parents probably never had. The RMA in its village stands for hope. It is a privilege for us at GCS to be an educational partner with the RMA.
In Kenya, it was fun to teach them games, and they were having an awesome experience. But when they taught me the games, that was very, very meaningful to me. It was heartwarming. The first day we went to the RMA, they were singing songs all the way to the school. They first sang in Swahili and then in English, celebrating both of our languages. Lots of people wanted to hold my hand and were asking me questions like, is your school like ours, or do you know my buddy? It was amazing the kind of opportunity and chance that I got to go to Kenya. I had a really fun time there, and I hope I can go back to Kenya a second time.
God is writing something beautiful in you, and God is writing something beautiful in our partnership. As new chapters unfold, God reveals His goodness to us in the gifts He gives us in each other. We learn that everyone has a story, no matter who you are, no matter where you are from. These stories matter. Your story matters. Our story matters. God writes stories that matter. And when this story ends, as all stories here on earth do, the next chapter of this story will continue eternally in heaven as we praise God together with our partners forever.